Hello and welcome to Episerver with Bob, episode 1. Today we're going to be taking a look at how to make the on-page editing experience within Episerver just a little bit better. Let's hop in. So on-page editing is a bit of a controversial subject. I, for one, think it's a very nice feature. I like being able to see exactly where I'm putting content, and I like not having to figure out what a property that's called something like alternate main content, where is that going to render? It's hard to know from just a property list, but it definitely has some detractors. One common complaint is that while it is nice for things that you can see on the page, it's not so good for things you can't see, such as metadata. To do metadata, I have to switch to Forms View and come in here and edit it, and then switch back when I'm done, and I think that's a valid complaint. But I also think we can maybe not fix that, but we can definitely improve it. So I'm going to show you how I like to improve on this situation. The short version is that we're going to build a certain block type that bundles up some of this non-visual information into just a single local block, and then we'll make that available for on-page editing. It sounds super simple and obvious, but there are a few things you have to do along the way to make this work well. So the first thing we're going to do is create a base block type that all of these blocks will descend from. For lack of a better term, I call these property blocks, and so that's what we're going to create. Feel free to name this whatever makes sense to you. So I'm going to make this abstract. We should never be creating just a property block with nothing in it. And obviously it needs to extend block data. Now, I'm intentionally kind of ignoring some of the alloy text stuff. I'm not going to make this site block data. I'm just going to make it block data just to keep it sort of separate. This technique has nothing to do with alloy. This is just the place where I'm putting it. We don't actually need property block to do anything. It just needs to be a class. Really, property block is just sort of a marker so that when we render the view for it, we know which renderer to use. Let's go ahead and create a property block. And I'm going to create a property block for page metadata. So for an example of how to build a property block, I thought I would bundle up some of the page metadata together into a single block. That would be the page title, the page description, and keywords. Now, obviously you can put any kind of information you want in here. This was also a good place for, exclude from site search or open graph data, that kind of stuff. You can actually standardize this and kind of just put it all in one spot. But for this example, I'm going to just grab those three properties. But first I have to create the block. So I'm going to create a new block, and I'm just going to class because that's how I do it. And this is going to be page metadata property block. And this will just extend property block. And I'm going to grab some properties from site page data. So this is where I will get the meta title, the meta keywords, meta description. Cut those out. And I will put them here, and then I'll spend a bunch of time fixing namespaces. Now, there's an issue here where it's trying to pull from page name that's not going to be available. There are ways to fix that, but for the purposes of this demonstration, I'm just going to take that out. And then UI hint, always being careful not to grab the one from find, but the one from web. There we go. There we go. Now I've got my property meta block. Now we need a way to render this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create sort of a generic controller that handles property block, so I don't have to create a specific controller for each of the property blocks. So it's going to be a block controller for type property block. And then sort of like the default page controller, you will want this template descriptor with inherited equals true. That way this controller will handle all property blocks. I'm trying to think. I think I have to override index. Is that right? Yes. Now, how you want to handle where you place these views is up to you. The way I like to do it is I like to have a folder in the views here. I like to call it something like property blocks or properties. We'll call it property blocks in this case. And then I drop in one file per property block because these are very simple. You generally don't need more than one view for a property block. So doing this pattern of folder name and then index doesn't really make sense in this situation. But again, this is entirely up to you. We'll need the type name, and then not index, it'll be the type name.csh.html. And of course, the type name is always get original type, never type or get type dot name. And then we just need to inject that into this. If I could type, there we go. So now our controller will, whenever it tries to render a property block of any kind, will get the type name and will render a file in the property blocks folder with the same name as the type. So let's create that view. So to create the view, I just need to create a new file, name it after the type, and I like to do the partial view, and it would be page metadata property block, the full block name. And I am just going to put in here, we'll say page metadata, and we'll come back and put something a little fancier in a little bit. Okay, so now that we've removed those properties from the site page data and we've moved it to a property block, we need to actually reference the property block in the site page data. So where those properties used to be, I'm going to put page metadata property block. And I think instead of calling it property block, I'll just call this page metadata. I need to bring in the namespace, and we'll display it. One thing to note, because this is referencing a block, if I were to put culture specific here, when I run the site, the content model updater thing will not let the site load because you cannot put culture specific on a local block. You can only put it on the properties of that block. So it doesn't make any sense to put that there. Keep it off. Next, we'll need to update the view. We pretty much destroyed the root view at this point, so let's take a look at that. And by view, I mean layout. So let's go to the root layout. You'll notice that current page.meta keywords, well, obviously that doesn't exist anymore, but now it's just one hop away. It is page metadata meta title. Did I get all that right? All right. Now, I'm running the site in IIS Express. Oh, I have a problem. Okay, last thing to do, I'm going to try to build this site, and it does not build. I get a problem with this meta description. It's the same thing, just needs to reference page metadata first, and then meta description. Oh, it does not, because I forgot something important. So in the page metadata property block, obviously we need a content type attribute. We need to assign it a GUID, which I can grab like that. I like to give it a display name. I don't think it shows up anywhere, but it's nice to have. And then probably one of the more important things to put on here is to make available in edit mode false. We don't want someone to create a page metadata block and try to drag it into a content area or something, because it's, doesn't make any sense. So I've disabled that. Check the site. Oops. Let me build. Check the site. Wait for it to load. All right, so the site loads, but so far we haven't improved anything. We've just moved some properties around. If I go into all properties view, I still have the same stuff here, my page metadata stuff. I think it's displaying like this because I didn't give it a title. I didn't give it a name here. I did not. So it's just name. I can't remember. Yeah, it is just name here. I wish that was consistent. So the name is, we'll call this page metadata, save, build, swap, wait. There we go. So now it displays a little nicer, so it is worth setting that value. But the thing I was trying to get at is that it's still not available on page editing. So now's the part where we fix that. Let's jump back into our root view. So the way I like to do this is I like to basically designate some space in the design for like a toolbar or a row of buttons that can be used to access these properties. And I typically just put that right at the top of the page, and I only render it, obviously, in edit mode. So let's do that. Okay, to make sure this is only visible in edit mode, we need to, I'm trying to think of the namespace, it's episerver.editor.pageediting.is, page is edit mode. A smarter idea would probably be to put this on your view model, but I'm putting it here for now just to keep things moving. I like to put in like my little, we'll call it an edit toolbar, whatever you want to call it. Style this up nicely. I'm not going to do any styling, hardly any styling at all for this, but just to give you an idea. So next I'm going to just put in the first button, which is going to be the page metadata. I am going to give this just the most basic styling ever. We're going to make this, oh man, I don't do a lot of CSS. We're going to make this inline block and give it a width of, yeah, so width, we'll say 200 pixels. And then you just do property for current page dot page metadata. Now what this is going to do is it should render this edit bar when you're in edit mode, and it will put a little button looking thing at the top that says page metadata. Let's see if that worked. I don't think I need to rebuild. Oh, so the issue here is that in my property block controller, I forgot to put views on here. Rebuild and wait. Oh, so now I'm getting a different error. The item passed into the dictionary is a page metadata property block. So I'm sending a page metadata property block somewhere, but the dictionary requires iPageViewModel. I've seen this error a bunch of times. It's a common thing that I sometimes do. I need to return a partial view instead of a view from the block controller. I swear, I've programmed in Episerver before. I'm certified. I know what I'm doing. I'm just not that good at it. And wait. There we go. Now, obviously, you would style this a little better. You could make this a button, make it stand out a little more. But here I've got this page metadata button up in the upper left, and I click on it. There's all my metadata properties. I can give it a title, close this. Saving still works as normal, and I can publish that. But wait, we can improve this a little bit further. Okay, so right now in our view, we are not accepting a model at all. However, there's no reason we can't accept the model. So if we accept the page metadata property block model, now we have access to that metadata. The interesting thing about that is that we can vary how we display this button based on that metadata. So let's say, for example, that we really want our editors to fill out the page title, because we probably should. We can check to see if it's been filled out. So they will have a page title if it is not null or empty. And then we can maybe display a little warning here if the page meta title has not been filled out. Come back over here. Now I have a page metadata meta title filled out, so I shouldn't see the warning, but if I pull it out, it re-renders and shows me warning. If I put it back, the warning goes away. So that's pretty slick. You could have a little checkbox, like a list of checkboxes or something, to give editors some visual feedback as to the state of their metadata. So the last thing I wanted to show is that a way to kind of extend this. So let's say, every page is going to have page metadata, but some specialized pages are going to have metadata that's specific to those pages. It may not be SEO stuff, but it might be, who knows. Just for an example, though, I'm going to go to a product page, and the product page is referencing the old meta description property. So let me fix that real quick. And that is a good point. It's actually probably best to do this on new projects and not so easy to do on existing projects. Let's see here. Product page, index, and it's the meta description that is failing. So again, we just need to add that page metadata hop in between those. And reload. Now let's just say, for sake of argument, that there's some string value that is specific to product pages, and we would like to have that up here as well. Well, we can do that. So let's start by cleaning up some space here and creating that block. We'll call this a product page settings property block. Same thing as before. This will extend property block. And I'm going to just grab this, paste it in, bring in some namespaces, change the GUID. And this is product page settings. And again, the key here is available in edit mode is false. And let's just give it a string value of some kind. Call it special product name. Typically you do all your display stuff and all that stuff. Culture specific. I'll just do that for now. We'll need a view for this. So once again, in the property blocks, let's add a view. And I'm not going to bother with the model this time. I'm just going to say, we'll just say product settings here. So the editor knows what they're clicking on. And then finally, I need to bring this property block onto the product page. I will put it right here. Again, we'll call this product page settings. And again, it's not a bad idea to put in the display and stuff, just not culture specific. So we've got our product page settings property block model all set up. It is part of the content model for the page. If I go to the content tab, you can see it here, product page settings, and I've got my special name, which I've already filled out. But it's not on the view yet. How do we get this in the view? Well, we can take a look at some options. If I go to the product page view, that's just what I'm looking at right now, I could drop this in somewhere like we do on the root. So for example, if I were to copy this code, I could paste it right up here and change this from page metadata to product page settings. This will technically work, but it's far from ideal. As you can see, I have page metadata up here. I do not have product settings up there. I have it down here, and it's a little confusing to have them in two different places. That's because I'm putting this in a, I guess, render body in that section when it should be up in the toolbar section. So what I need to do is make space in the toolbar section for this to come along. Now, if I go back to the root template where I'm doing the toolbar, I can't reference the product settings from here, the product page settings, because my model is iPageView model, and iPageView model doesn't know anything about product pages. And I don't want it to know anything about product pages. There may be some hacks or something I could do to put product page information in here, but I don't think that's what I want to do. Instead, what I'm going to do is create a section specifically for the edit bar, and we'll just call it edit bar. And an important thing here is to make sure that required is false. So I've created this section. Now in theory, in this area here, I can just do, just get rid of this div and do section edit bar and drop that in. This is not going to work, and we'll look at the error and see why. So the following sections have been defined but have not been rendered for 2+1. So we've defined a section called edit bar in our view, but the layout that the product page is using is 2+1. And so that view is not rendering this section. So what we need to actually do is add this section to the view and then render sort of a subsection. So basically we're making a pass through. So I'm going to go to that 2+1 partial view. I'm going to copy this in here. I'm going to have my edit bar section, and then I'm going to render section edit bar false. Again, not required, but so basically this section corresponds to the root section right here. And then the product page section, edit bar, corresponds to the 2+1 section right here. It's a little confusing. It's just a quirk of MVC that we have to do. The other thing to note is you'll notice that I've done this pages in edit mode in every single place. And again, that's just because of that MVC quirk where if I render, or if I put an edit bar section in the view and I don't render it up here, then it's going to be an issue. So I have to make sure that everything is within edit mode. Let's check this out and see if this works. There it is. So now we have our page metadata and we have our product page settings. So that's it. It's obviously you'd probably want to style these better, but this gives you a starting point, gives you an idea. One thing to keep in mind that I've run into is that certain property types have an issue where when you open the dialog, it will trigger a save, and then Episerver will treat the content as if it's changed, even though nothing has changed. And it seems to happen just when you open these dialogs for certain property types, but it's not super consistent. So it's kind of annoying, but it's not the end of the world. If you're just looking at the property, you can close it and then click over here and click revert. Just something to keep in mind. So otherwise, I hope you found this useful, and thanks for watching.